Assalamualaikum and hello. Let's continue with the IUPAC nomenclature of aldehyde. The general step, which is step 1, you are going to determine the parent aldehyde where it must be the longest carbon chain containing carbonyl groups. So your carbonyl group must be at the lowest possible number. And for aldehyde, it's very special because the first carbon will be the carbonyl carbon. Next step, step 2, name the aldehyde by replacing the suffix, your family name. For alkane, we are going to change it for the alphabet E with al. So it will be alkanal. Next one, if you got the substituents, you have to put it as prefix in alphabetical order. And your carbonyl group, as I mentioned before, the carbon that holds the double bond O must be position at first carbon. Let's try example 1 where I got A. Structure A, you got 2 carbon atoms, and as you see here, the carbon that holds the carbonyl group must be first carbon for aldehyde. So this one is going to be the first carbon and this is going to be the second carbon. And when you have alkane with 2 carbon atoms, you are going to call it as ethane, but right now we are going to change the family name as aldehyde, so the name for structure A will be ethanol. Next one, we go to example 1b. I have this structure where my first carbon is going to be the carbon that holds carbon double bond O. So this is going to be the first carbon, followed by, to the left, second and the third one. And as you see here, you got one substituent, CH3. This is what we call as methyl. The concept still the same. And now we are going to give the name for the parent. You have 3 carbon atoms, so the parent will be propanol. And you have methyl at position carbon number 2, so the full name for this structure will be 2-methylpropanol. For your information, there are a few common names for aldehyde that you are going to see along this semester. The first one is methanol with 1 carbon atom attached to hydrogen, both sides. And the other common name for methanol is formaldehyde. The next one, you have ethanol, 2 carbon atoms, so in this case it will be 2 carbon atom, this one 1 carbon atom. So the common name for ethanol is acetaldehyde. Next one, you have propanol with 3 carbon atoms, so in this case the name for propanol is propionaldehyde. Next one, I got butanol, 4 carbon atoms for aldehyde. The other name for butanol is N-butyryldehyde. And next one, I got pentanol with 5 carbon atoms. So the name for that is N-valeraldehyde. And last one, I got phenylmethanol, where in this case, this is the IUPAC name when you use the priority list. If you got the benzene ring as your alkyl group. So this big one, this big guy here is the alkyl group, and what will happen, R is less priority than carbonyl, so that's why the parent will be aldehyde with 1 carbon, the name which is methanol for the parent, and your benzene ring is going to be the substituent. The full name for this structure will be phenylmethanol. But as you know, the common name that you've been used before in chapter 4, you use it as benzaldehyde. So both of these, IUPAC and common name, are acceptable in nomenclature question. And one last thing to mention about aldehyde. Aldehyde, the first carbon always the one that hold the double bond O. So as you see here, this will be always first carbon, no matter how many long the carbon chain is. Now let's continue with the naming for ketone. For ketone, it's just the same step, but right now for ketone, you have to determine the parent ketone with the longest carbon chain that containing the carbon group. And in this case, the parent name for ketone, your letter E in alkene, will be changed to -un. And you must indicate the position of carbonyl group because it is a ketone. There will be possibility where your carbonyl group must not be always at the first position of carbon. And last step, if you got the substituents, put it as prefix in alphabetical order. So now I'm going to show you example 2a, how I want to give the name for this structure. This is where you got 3 carbon atoms, the longest one for your carbon chain, where I'm going to start from whichever side I want. It is just the same. So this is the first, second, and the third. As you see here, you got at second carbon, which is double bond O. So this is the carbon that holds carbonyl group. So I'm going to give my parent as propanone. But I have to indicate the position of C double bond O. So it is at the second carbon. So my full name will be 2-propanone. You can also give the name as another style, which is you separate the naming for the numbering and the family name. So it will be propan-2-un. So this is where you separate the numbering and the family name. Whichever one that you prefer with, both of these are acceptable. Next one, we go to the second structure, B. I got this case where you got the longest carbon chain is 5. So I'm going to give the numbering, whichever side I want. For example, I start from the right side. So I can see my numbering with 5 carbon atoms. And what's next? At position carbon number 3, I got double bond O. So the name for this one will be 3-pentanone. You can also use another style, which is pentan-3-un. You can also use another name for this one, which is diethyl ketone. And there is a space between diethyl and ketone, the space here. So this is another common name for structure B. But I hope you can give the IUPAC nomenclature as general. So the top one should be fine. Now let's go to the next example, structure C. I got this one. So as you see from here, the carbon that holds double bond O is at this position. So I'm going to highlight this one with the yellow color. You can see that the priority for the numbering must be for the functional group. So I'm going to start my functional group from this side. So this one will be the first carbon, the second, the third, fourth, and fifth. And I got this CH3 as my substituent, which is methyl at position carbon number 4. So the full name for my parent is 2-pentanone, and I got 4-methyl for my substituent. So I'm going to write down the full name for that is 4-methyl-2-pentanone. Let's go to the last example. I have my structure, which is a cyclic ring. This cyclic ring contains 8 carbon atoms, but which position of numbering for the first one you are going to start? So I'm going to start at the functional group. So you got carbonyl group here. There are 2 of them. So I'm going to start at whichever side I want. So I'm going to start from this numbering. I cannot go down because the numbering will be quite far from one another. So I'm going to go up. So this will be the second carbon, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So from here, I got my cyclic as cyclooctane when I put it as cycloalkane. But right now, I'm going to change the alphabet E. So I'm going to put the full name for this one is cyclooctane without E. And after that, I'm going to give my numbering for two functional groups. There are at position carbon number 1 and number 4. So dash 1, 4, dash. And I got my family name which is one. But in this case, there are two functional groups. That's why I'm going to put dione. So this is the naming for structure D. For your information, there are a few common names for ketone as well. You got this one, 3 carbon chain, and the IUPAC name, please do a correction here. The name will be 2-propanone because you have to indicate. And what's next? The common name for this structure can be acetone. For butanone, you can see that why I didn't put the numbering because the carbonyl group must be always at the second carbon. So you can put 2-butanone or you just put it as butanone also fine. But for case 2-propanone, it can be another name which is 1-propanone. That's why I have to put the numbering. And get back to butanone. The other common name for butanone is methylethyl ketone. Why? Because you have ketone with two alkyl group. The first one is methyl, the second one is ethyl. So that's why methylethyl ketone. Next, I have 2-pentanone, and the common name will be methylpropyl ketone. So the first one for your alkyl group you have methyl, and the next one you have propyl. So next one I have 3-pentanone, where the other name for this one will be diethyl ketone. You got two ethyl groups attached to the same carbonyl carbon. That's why the common name is diethyl ketone. Next one I have phenylethanone. So this is the priority list based on this IUPAC name is based on the priority list, but the other name for that is acetophenone. You have benzene ring, your alkyl group R, which is less priority than carbonyl group, and this will be first carbon and this will be the second carbon. And last one, I have diphenylmethanone, where my case here, I got two alkyl groups, R and then R. This is the benzene ring as substituent because R group is less priority than carbonyl group, and this one will be my methanone because one carbon for the ketone. And then you have two phenyl groups, that's why the name is diphenylmethanone. You can also call this as benzophenone or diphenyl ketone. So that's all for the naming of aldehydes and ketones. I hope you can try to do the exercise to enhance your understanding. That's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.